Welcome to the Skull King Football Podcast, presented by Fox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin and Ryan Skullrood.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Skullrood. I got my brother with me, Justin, and we're back again after a night off. We are going to go over some of the headlines for the day. Not a whole lot to cover, just some injury stuff to cover. Then we are going to look at probably about 7 of the games for this weekend, give you our thoughts on who you should start, who you should sit, give some of our reasons why. And then we'll call the night, and then I believe Justin will cover the rest of the games tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah, I will be covering the rest of the games on tomorrow's episode, covering the rest of the games throughout the rest of the day, kind of hitting the Oakland-Miami game and then the rest of the schedule for the day. And then that's me.
All righty. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started with today's headlines.
Today's headlines.
Starting off, Jay Ajayi with his back injury did not practice Wednesday, which basically means it's going to be the Corey Clement show coming up this weekend.
Go grab him now.
If he's still available, and if he's still available, I want to play in your leagues.
Yes.
Jarvis Landry is questionable for Week 3 against the Jets. I don't see that being an issue. I'm pretty sure he's going to play no matter what. Case Keenum is not practicing Wednesday. He's going to play. Dalvin Cook is practicing Wednesday. Actually, wait. We had an update up here. Where was it? Did not practice. Actually, Dalvin Cook did not practice on Wednesday. So there is a possibility that he will not be playing this weekend. And if that is the case, you need to have Latavius Murray.
Yes, which I already do.
Which as soon as I saw that report, I picked him up right away. So
yeah, I've been a believer in Latavius Murray since the offseason. Saw what he did in preseason, what he did last year in the absence of Dalvin Cook. I just had a feeling that Cook would deal with something this offseason, or this season. So I was grabbing Latavius wherever I could in drafts. In like a 10-team draft, I was grabbing him around 10 just to make sure that I got him. I grabbed him before quarterback, kind of a thing, and this is exactly the situation why I was looking to grab Murray. So,
all right, Devonta Freeman is still not practicing, so it's the Corey Coleman show in Atlanta. Evan Ingram was limited a little bit. Giovanni Bernard was limited in Wednesday's practice. I believe that's mainly so that they can just keep him fresh since he's going to be the main guy in Cincinnati. One of the things to look at, maybe look at. I'm sure he's going to be available because no one knows who he is. Mark Walton, 4th-round rookie that they drafted this past year. Had some big kind of day one hype, but struggled a little bit in the preseason. He's probably going to share some time with Giovanni Bernard, so that's just a guy to keep your eye on. Maybe star him on your watch list on Yahoo.
Yeah, not someone you grab yet, but someone you watch in case this whole thing with Mixon lingers and they look to do some sort of timeshare kind of thing like they did in Denver, and Walton decides to blast it to nowhere. It is possible. And but I'm a firm believer that Gio is going to have this stranglehold for this one.
Yep. Marcus Mariota is practicing on Wednesday, which isn't a big deal really unless you're a Corey Coleman owner and a Dion Lewis owner, of which I am a Dion Lewis owner. And Blaine Gabbert is an absolute.
Hang on. You mean Corey Davis, not Corey Coleman?
Sorry, Corey Davis. My bad.
No one should be a Corey Coleman owner right now.
Not even. Okay,
that's like being a Des Bryant owner.
Not even. Oh yeah. Well,
or a Michael Irving owner.
So yeah, Dion Lewis. If as long as Mariota's back, Dion Lewis is definitely a must start. Alshon Jeffrey remains sidelined at Wednesday's practice. Aaron Rodgers didn't practice, but that's he's going to be he'll be playing this weekend.
He'll be nursing that knee every week. He'll do the walkthrough. I think that'll be the extent of his practice for the next couple of weeks.
Now, there is a report that came out just after that says Aaron Rodgers said that there is concern his knee could get worse So that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
My knee could get worse. He plays football. Like that's like a noise thing. That's not a news thing.
Larry Fitzgerald will play in against Chicago this week. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out with Fitz and if he can actually get a little more work. Honestly, what they need to do is just replace Sam Bradford because he has been pathetic this year.
Yeah. High conversion of passes, great passer percentage, but when you don't throw any farther than 5 yards downfield, that's going to happen.
When you complete almost 70% of your passes and only have 84 yards at halftime, there's a problem. All right, and Melvin Gordon with his neck injury is practicing in full for Week 3 against the Rams. So that's all we have for the headlines. Now let's go ahead.
One thing that I want to point out about Gordon is be wary of this matchup against the Rams. This is one where Austin Eckler owners should be paying a lot of attention to this because this has the potential, if they're going to try and run up the middle against this Rams defense and Gordon already has some neck issues, he's going to be going up against some massive monster beasts up the middle in Sue and Donald. So this is just something to be very, very wary of with Gordon.
Yep. Which, again, is why I'm an Austin Eckler owner. All right.
Yeah, I tried to trade for him. It didn't work.
Yeah, you weren't going to pull him from me, that's for sure. All right.
Different league.
All right, so
a couple other pieces of news. Duke Johnson owners should be happy because Hugh Jackson says that they need to get him more touches. This is obvious. Duke Johnson has been one of the best PPR running backs in the league over the last couple of years, and right now he's got 4 points. So he's not being involved. They need to get him the ball more. Obviously, the biggest problem for the Browns is a field goal kicker, but I think another issue is not being able to get Duke Johnson in the mix, mixing some things up, getting some things, change of pace cut type of stuff. If Duke Johnson doesn't score 5 points, we'll cover this a little bit later. If he doesn't score 5 points this week in PPR, you got to drop him. He's just not being used.
I know in a couple leagues he's already been dropped. So,
yeah. And then Antonio Brown reported to practice, so finally. That should be exciting. You and I joked about this, that players Twitter's good for some things, but for a lot of people it can just be bad. Not the right word I'm looking for, but just it can be something that brings
unnecessary distraction.
Yeah, that's We'll go there. So it's one of those things. Ignore the haters. Continue to do what you do, Antonio Brown, because you're still the best wide receiver in the league.
All right, moving on. Here we go. Let's get into the games. Oh, shoot. Starting off, there it is. Jets and the Browns, Thursday Night Football. Justin, why don't you give me some of your thoughts on this game? Why don't you go ahead and talk about the Jets a little bit?
So for the Jets, Sam Darnold had a bunch of yards last week against Miami. Cleveland is the 7th-ranked defense against the pass, and that's even after going against solid passing games in the Steelers and the Saints. I don't like Darnold in this game at all. Obviously, I don't think anyone should be starting him, even in 2-quarterback leagues. The Browns have played 2 good offenses, even though Darnold put up 300 yards against Miami, like I mentioned. This is not Antonio Brown or Michael Thomas going up against this defense. So I would stay away from Darnold. He's probably going to throw a pick or two, which is why I like Cleveland as a streamable defense because he's young and he's going to make some errors. But I wouldn't look to do anything with Darnold. Isaiah Crowell, the Browns are the 24th best defense on the ground. Now, once again, small sample size, so I wouldn't put too much stock into that because we're only 2 games in. But the Browns as a whole are better than advertised. They've kept in step with the Steelers and the Saints, both playoff teams last year, and have only lost 1 game. So Isaiah Crowell and Powell, I'm not really excited about. Nunwa is definitely a start as a wide receiver 3, kind of flex option. Solid play. He's going to be going up against Denzel Ward, which makes me nervous because Ward didn't shut down, but kind of limited Michael Thomas and Antonio Brown because he's way better than an average corner. He's not like a Lattimore type of guy, but there's a reason why the Browns went up in the first round and got him to help on the defense. So Anun was a starter. Robbie Anderson not. I'm nervous about Powell. I'm ranking Powell ahead of Isaiah Crowell. Crowell low RB3. Or Crowell low RB3. Powell kind of a high RB3 flex play. I think if Jets are going to win this game, it's going to be through Powell and Enunwa.
All right. Kind of my thoughts on the Browns. I definitely agree with you that the Browns DST is definitely there to be held. If you consider what they were able to do against the Saints and be able to hold them down as well as they did in terms of their scoring offense. Yeah, they gave up a bunch of yards in the game. Breeze, Kamara, Thomas, they all put up their numbers. I mean, they're going to do that. But the fact that the Browns DST was able to basically hold off everyone else to keep them from from really running up the score, really says something about this Browns team and their defense that they have put together. So I definitely like the Browns DST for this game. In terms of other starters, Jarvis Landry is going to be a start, even because he's PPR and the amount of targets he gets. You really have no choice but to start him as honestly a floor number 3, wide receiver 3, because of the target share that he gets. So I really like Landry for this game. Going on from there, Taylor, he's streamable only. If you absolutely need a quarterback, yeah, I think there are other options that could be found elsewhere in the league.
One of the things that I'll say about for those who are looking to stream Taylor this week, one thing in your favor is Tyrod Taylor has played the Jets numerous times, played with when he was in the AFC East playing for Buffalo last year. And in the 2 games he played against the Jets last year, before he had any weapons, 500 yards plus in the air, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 73 yards on the ground, almost 600 yards total in 2 games. So that's solid play. He has better weapons here in Cleveland than he ever did in Buffalo. So if you're already on the pro streaming Tyrod Taylor bandwagon this week, I give you the nod.
All right. In terms of other players for the Browns, honestly, let me pull up this one right here. I'm pulling up the defensive numbers for them.
The Jets are currently ranked 8th so far this season against the run.
In terms of fantasy points against running backs?
Yeah, but they played the Lions, who were not going to run when they were getting blown out.
No. One thing to look at is that the New York Jets are 11th in terms of yards given up. They only give up 3.8 yards per game, 3.8 yards per carry. So they do have a pretty stout defense for the most part. What helps, I think, Hyde in terms of this game is the fact that he's able to catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit as well. So Hyde is kind of that flex play-ish. If you need a flex player, I think he could do it, but I'm not actively starting him unless you're in a 14-team league or higher. So,
yeah, I have Hyde as a solid RB2, kind of mid to low RB2, but definitely above a flex play. I think he finally gets in the end zone this week, and so that's where I'm kind of giving him the bump. He's too good to not be in the red zone. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, so I think work at the goal line is going to matter, and I give the edge to the Cleveland Browns.
All right, that's all I've got. That's all I've got for that game. Anything else for the Jets or Browns?
No. One of the things that I'll say is Antonio Callaway could be a flex possibility if you're desperate. I would like another game of proof before starting him or before feeling comfortable. He flashed in the preseason when Gordon was absent. He's now clearly the number 2 in terms of talent. He didn't get as many targets as Higgins last week, but Callaway's the receiver I like as the number 2 option.
All right. Moving on next, the Saints versus the Falcons in an NFC South battle. All right. Do you want the Saints or the Falcons in this one?
It doesn't really matter to me.
I'll take the Saints.
I'm basically going to say the same thing across the board in this game.
Saints, you play Breeze, you play Kamara, you play Thomas. Anyone other than that, Ben Watson, in terms of playing at tight end, he is streamable, but not a great option. Let me pull up.
More than likely, you have a better option unless you are in a 14-team or more league.
It's correct. Let me just pull up. There we go. Ben Watson. Hey, there we go. Helps if I pull up the right. Atlanta is looks like actually the third or fourth best, fifth best in terms of going up against tight ends in fantasy points. So I mean, it's not the best matchup for Watson, but considering all the other weapons that they have, and on top of that, remember that I want to say it was all last week on Sunday, the Falcons lost, or was it also partially in week 1? They lost Keanu Neal, and they lost their who was it? Their starting Deion Jones, their starting middle linebacker. So their number 1 safety and their middle linebacker, they have lost to season-ending injuries. So that's definitely something that that maybe that plays more in favor of Coleman that maybe that plays more in the favor of like Kamara and Thomas playing over the middle. It could help out Ben Watson, but really the only for sure plays are Breeze, Kamara, and Thomas. Everyone outside of that, we still don't know enough, to be completely honest. So,
yeah, going into this game, I had you start both quarterbacks, you start both starting running backs, and you start the wide receiver ones in this game.
Yep.
Everybody else, you basically sit and watch. Calvin Ridley's interesting. He didn't do anything in week 1. They're going to work to get him more involved as the weeks go on. So he's a stash bench player for me, not a startable option, as I think the Saints are going to get their defense back in order. I think they may have come into the week 1 thinking it was going to be easy, and Fitzmagic just went abracadabra all over the field. And Julio Jones probably going to have a solid game. Lattimore, I need to be paying attention to. If Evans can make Lattimore look foolish, Julio Jones is going to make him look like a child. But Lattimore was a solid defender last year. So we'll see. I'm leaning towards a lower scoring game in this, but this thing could easily be 40-40. So, but outside of the quarterbacks, RB1s and wide receiver 1s, I'm not starting anybody. Tight ends are 2. Austin Hooper is 2 touchdown dependent, and Watson has 7 catches and 12 points in 2 games. So not exactly someone I'm going to be playing.
Yeah, outside of those main players, you're only looking at everyone else as possible like DFS value plays. That's it.
Yeah, that's about it.
All right, well, that's it for the Saints and Falcons. Let's move on to the Denver Broncos versus the Baltimore Ravens. What are you looking at for the Broncos in this game?
I'm not starting Keenum. The leg injury has me a little bit concerned. Plus, he's been a little bit of a turnover machine. For those of you who listened to our waiver wire show, I did mention that Keenum was a addable player, but not someone I'm looking to start this week. Philip Lindsay, I give the edge over Royce Freeman, but I have them both at RB3-ish this week. So low RB2, high RB3, kind of the
we make things look easy.
And with 34-ish, 34-ish, 35-ish range. And I give the edge to Lindsay because of his involvement in the passing game. But this whole hot hand thing, I think is smoke and mirrors to we're going to do what we want, and we don't care what anybody else thinks outside of this. Right now, Philip Lindsay is the quote-unquote hot hand, but they're still giving plenty of touches to Royce Freeman. Freeman's the one that got touchdown last week. In terms of the passing game, Sanders has really been, to me, the story of the offense so far this year.
Yep.
Denver hasn't really faced a tough defense so far, though, so that has me a little bit concerned. If I was the Ravens, I'd focus on keeping Sanders in front of me because, Thomas can't get separation enough to beat you. I have Sanders as an RB2. And then Thomas was a bust last week against the Raiders. What does that make you think about his ability this week? I still have him as a wide receiver 3 because of the target share. He has 21 targets in 2 games, and in PPR, you play guys with 10 or more targets, period. You just do because you can't buy that target share anywhere else. I know that Deshaun Jackson is torching people with his ability to catch the ball after or run the ball after catching it. But I don't know if you can really bank on a guy who's only catching the ball 4 times. So in PPR, I trust the consistency of targets. Sanders 15 targets. And Thomas 21. So I would play Sanders and Thomas. I would play Lindsay. I'm personally sitting Freeman, and then I'm not playing Keenum at all.
I still think that Freeman is a possible flex play, especially in deeper leagues. But yeah, Sanders is definitely the wide receiver to own for the Broncos. He in the preseason, a lot of people were talking about how he in the beginning had the best rapport with Case Keenum, really connected well. So I've really liked what Sanders has done this year. And hey, what do you know? I actually drafted both of them in the ESPN in our listener league. So, and they've been doing great for me so far. As far as the Ravens go, I'll be honest. Justin and I were talking about this before the game. I had a hard time picking someone that I wanted to play in this game. Crabtree, wide receiver 3, really. He's got Joe Flacco's his quarterback, and yes, Joe Flacco's had a couple of big games. Sort of. I mean, he played against the Buffalo Bills and threw for 4 touchdowns. Everyone does that against the Buffalo Bills. Then was it last week they played against the Bengals. And what did he have? He had like 350 yards. They threw the ball 50 times or something like that. Yeah. But again, they got behind. They had no choice but to throw. In this game, I see this one as more of a defensive battle, and the Broncos have some pretty solid defenders out on the outside. So I think that they could cause some problems for Crabtree and Brown. Their run defense is amazing, which is going to cause problems for Alex Collins. I still think he is the better option to play in terms of the running backs between him and Buck Allen. But, who knows what's going on with Harbaugh's head when it comes to those 2 running backs. Like I said, outside of that, I don't have a whole lot of trust to put into the Ravens offense. I mean, I'm in a 10-team league that I have Alex Collins, and I'm sitting him because I have other options to use. So,
yeah, I'm a little concerned about his injury right now, or his lack of being at practice today. For me, I like John Brown in this game, and I'm okay with playing Crabtree. Crabtree is going to be the one that is going to get the target share, probably 5 catches, around 60 yards. If you're going to score, you're probably going to score through the air against Denver. They've allowed 4 touchdowns in the air and 1 on the ground. They gave up 3 to Seattle through the air. So, to me, John Brown would be the likely candidate because he's the deeper threat. Something a little bit more similar to – Amari Cooper got 10 catches and 116 yards against his defense. So, I would lean more towards John Brown. 10 targets last week, only caught 4 balls, and they were down early, so they had to throw the ball. Once again, 50-plus throws from Flacco. Only 4 in week 1 against the Bills, but they were killing the Bills. So I lean Brown, and I'm okay with Crabtree because when you get in the red zone, he's probably the likely target or beneficiary. But knowing Flacco, he may just decide to throw to a tight end.
Very well could be. So, and who knows which tight end he's going to throw to, because they usually have 4 on the roster and they're all rotating every game. So
yeah, right now, Nick Boyle, Mark Andrews, and Hayden Hurst. I don't know why I say that as Jaden, but Hayden Hurst are all projected around 5 points.
Okay.
So
does Max Williams still play for them?
Who knows?
All right. Moving on, the Bengals and the Panthers. I'll go ahead and take the Bengals on this one. Your obvious start is Dalton and Green. Even with the pass defense for oops, wrong one. There we go. The pass defense for the Carolina Panthers, they're number 7 in terms of yards, only giving up 410 pass yards a game. However, it also looks like they're giving up a passer rating of 100.2. So it's not they're not giving up yards. They've given up only a couple TDs. They're giving up deeper plays. The yards per attempt is not all that great, and they're giving up a 73% completion percentage. Now, in terms of the Bengals, I mean, like I said, Green is going to get his work. He is going to catch the ball, and he is going to get a lot of targets from Dalton. Moving on to the rest.
He only catch 5 for 40 yards, but
and 3 touchdowns.
I'm still bitter about last week.
But other than that, Gio Bernard is going to be a start. Because of his ability not only to catch the ball out of the backfield, but because he can also run the ball. Carolina's 25th in yards given up on the ground, 4.9 yards per carry. So they're having a little trouble stopping the run there. So
he's also consistent. He's also been a valuable player in this offense for the last couple of years.
Yeah, so Gio has been able to be consistent. He's had his off and on years, depending on usage. Let's be honest, it's his usage in a lot of cases or why he's had a down year.
Yeah.
So Dalton, Green, Gio. Boyd, I believe, is more of a desperation flex play. Last week was an abnormality, in my opinion, if you look at the rest of his career. I'm okay with Boyd if you need it. Deeper league flex play is where I would look at him. Other than that, I'm not starting him in a 10 or 12 team league unless I've got injuries, which I draft so heavy on wide receivers early that that's kind of beyond where I'm using him. So, what do you got for the Panthers?
Yeah, for me, once again, another solid, easy slate through here. You're going to play Cam Newton probably around a top 5 play this week, just because of his ability to once again get touchdowns in the red zone on the ground. Christian McCaffrey, I don't know. I mean, he's the leading receiver on this team, 14 catches last week. Or something like that. So Christian McCaffrey is an obvious start. C.J. Anderson hasn't done enough. He may vulture a touchdown from Christian McCaffrey, maybe. And then Devin Funchess. Outside of that, I'm not starting anybody else at all. Devin Funchess scored, I think, 14 points last week in PPR. 7 catches, like 70-ish yards. Could have a similar type of situation here. But outside of those 3, there's not a single guy on here that I would feel comfortable playing, even in a 14-team league. So I'm not playing DJ Moore. C.J. Anderson doesn't get enough workload. And I'm not playing a Carolina tight end whose name is other than Olsen.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen.
So, all right. That's it for the Bengals and Panthers. Moving on, we've got the New York Football Giants against the Houston Texans. Justin, what do you got for the G-Men?
Before I go there, this is a battle of 2 0-2 teams who both were looking to make playoff pushes. I mean, the Giants have been missing a running game, so they needed it. which they got in Saquon Barkley. But Ryan, really quickly before I get into the Giants, who do you have, if you had to pick one, who do you have winning this game?
Honestly, I probably have the Texans winning this game.
Okay, I do too.
And here's why. The Texans are leading the league in running, and I think that's going to be a factor in this game. I believe that their quarterback is more dynamic to make plays.
Anyone is more dynamic than the slow-moving rock that is Eli Manning.
I mean, okay, you've got Hopkins against Odell. They're about even. You could say, you can make the argument that one is above the other. Not a problem. You look at the number 2 passing option for both teams, and it's what, Sterling Shepard or Evan Ingram against Will Fuller, who's
I have it as Saquon Barkley.
Okay, and then for the Texans, I mean, you could say that Saquon Barkley is the better athlete, can catch the ball in the backfield, but Lamar Miller's running the ball all over the place, and the Giants lost their center this last week, and so their crappy offensive line is going to be even worse.
Yeah, Lamar Miller would be I would feel much more comfortable about my grabbing of Lamar Miller had he found the red zone or, I don't know, been involved in the passing game. But, yeah, Lamar Miller's getting yards. He just needs some touchdowns. All right. But for me, the Giants, obviously you're starting Saquon Barkley. You're not playing Eli Manning. Odell should have a bounce-back week. And because Odell has a bounce-back week, I'm looking for Evan Ingram to have a slouch of a week once again because I think Evan Ingram had a great week because Odell had a bad week. So there's not enough talent at the quarterback position or from the offensive line to warrant Odell Beckham Jr., Evan Ingram, and Saquon Barkley all having good games on the same day. So, to me, I would give the edge to Barkley and Beckham. Sterling Shepard is a flex play at best for me. I would have Ingram. I would play Ingram above Sterling Shepard, but that's me. I that's kind of how I see it.
All right. Again, as far as the Texans go, you're going to start Miller. You're going to start Hopkins. Fuller is a flex play, wide receiver 3, simply because he can be a bit boom or bust. He will get into he'll have a big game and get into the end zone, or he'll drop 2 or 3 passes and only have and he doesn't get as much of the target share normally as Hopkins. Hopkins is the high target guy. So yeah, since Hopkins is the top target guy, Fuller gets a fair amount of targets. However, he's not going to get quite the target share, and therefore is like I said, is normally a little bit more of a boomer bust. So I think he's a wide receiver, a boomer bust wide receiver 3, who could have a wide receiver 1 game.
Yeah, I love the upside in this game. DeAndre Hopkins is going up against Janoris Jenkins, so that's a tougher matchup because you have a solid corner against or a top corner, better than solid, going up against a top receiver. So those matches are always interesting to watch to see who wins those. But, I mean, Fuller's not going up against anybody on the other side. So look for Fuller to have some deep seam routes. Good Lord, he could get 2 touchdowns in this game. But I definitely have Hopkins obviously above Fuller, but Fuller's upside in this game is huge.
Yep. All right, that's all we got for the Texans and Giants. We're going to cover a couple more games. Titans and Jags. For the Titans, since I actually own a couple of Titans, Dion Lewis, again, I think that he is the better play as long as Marcus Mariota is playing. If Mariota is not, it's Derrick Henry because they don't want to put the ball in the hands of Blaine Gabbert if they don't have to. Plus, because they're going up against the Jaguars, and the Jags do have a little bit of an explosive offense. Fournette's supposed to be back, I believe. And so the weapons that they have on offense could mean that the Titans will have to throw the ball a bit more, which means Dion Lewis is going to have to be in the game. The the Jags defense is solid enough that Corey Davis, got it right this time, Corey Davis is going to have a little trouble getting loose. Who else? I mean, who else do they have? The Titans have, I mean, in terms of their receiving game, Rashard Matthews, who is still learning the offense because of how much the offseason. So I mean, really, it's Dion Lewis is I think one of the better options to play here. Other than that, I don't like a lot of the options in the offense there. Maybe a Taywan Taylor, but he's another one of those desperation flex plays in larger leagues.
This is one where, for me, if Marcus Mariota doesn't play in this game, I think the Jaguars D could have more points than any Titans player.
That very well could be.
Because you saw last week, without Marcus Mariota, Dion Lewis didn't do too much, and they tried to force the ball with Derrick Henry in the rush. Blaine Gabbert couldn't hardly do jack. But for me, on the Jaguars side, I like Keelan Cole in this game. Keelan Cole, I was reading an article earlier where Keelan Cole has been a top 8 receiver going back to, I think, the last 3 weeks of last season. So that's 5 weeks of a top 10 wide receiver, and he's going up against, so far, the 31st ranked defense for the pass. You saw both Hopkins and Fuller have great games against Tennessee last week. I look for Keelan Cole after that monster of a catch that he got last week against the Patriots.
That was so beautiful.
I mean, it was insane. To flash again, not so much TD Westbrook. Haven't seen enough from him. Haven't seen enough from Dante Moncrief to make me feel comfortable in picking one of those as the second. I would probably go Cole, Westbrook, then Moncrief.
Yeah, I would agree.
But to me, Bortles will flash, and then Bortles will be Bortles. So that's part of the frustration of who he is. Leonard Fournette coming back from his injury is kind of a toss-up. Obviously, it's one of those things. If he's healthy, he plays. Yeldon is probably going to be the scratch this week. But the Titans have been pretty good against the run. So Fournette, I don't see getting more than 80 yards unless he's able to break something. I see this as a super low-scoring game in Jacksonville. Keelan Cole being, I think, the top scorer in this game.
All righty. Moving on, the last game of the week that we are going to cover tonight on this episode.
Points alert. This is going to be serious points.
Yeah. Even if it's just from the Chiefs, this is going to be a lot of points in this game because the Niners defense is still young and still trying to figure things out. Why don't you go ahead and you can cover it. Well, I'll let you pick which team you want to cover on this one.
I'm going to go with the Chiefs because I can't bring myself to pick Garoppolo as a starter. I have him as like 13 or 14 this week, but we're going to go with Mahomes. Mahomes, like we said, is on a tear. But for his hot start and the 10 touchdowns he's thrown with no interceptions, he's still number 2 in fantasy. So, to me, this is not going to be a challenge. I think this is going to be another 4-touchdown game. You're looking at 14 touchdowns in the first 3 weeks. Kareem Hunt is going to do some damage on the ground and in the passing game. I think the Chiefs can get up early, maybe 21-7, and they'll look to implement the run a little bit more, which is where I think Kareem Hunt will get his value. But to me, Tyreek Hill, obvious start. Sammy Watkins makes me kind of nervous. I'm less confident in Sammy Watkins. But right now, with the way that Mahomes is playing, I would start Watkins in a flex with comfortability in a deeper league, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 range, depending on the depth of your league, probably wide receiver 3. But to me, Mahomes is a top 5 player this week overall. He's going to get points. San Francisco 49ers are not a stout defense and have given up points over the last couple of weeks. So I look for the Kansas City Chiefs to start 3-0 and have another big monster game.
Yeah, as far as the Niners go, it's you almost want to play Garoppolo simply because of the fact that this is going to have to be a shootout, that they're going to have to throw the ball in order to stay in this game. And so, yeah, he's probably going to have his turnovers, but he also could throw for 3 touchdowns because the Chiefs' defense is terrible. 104 passer rating they're giving up. They've given up 860 passing yards because they get up so far that they just play prevent defense.
Yeah,
which doesn't prevent anything.
They've given up more yards than Fitzpatrick has in the first 2 weeks. And he's the number 1 overall fantasy player. What does that tell you about the Kansas City Chiefs defense?
Their defense, even if you look at their offense, their passing yards, they've only thrown in passing yards for 578.
The efficiency is insane, though.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. And let's see. Even look at their running game. They're running for 233 yards a game, but that's because they're also running jet sweeps to Tyreek Hill. It's not Kareem Hunt, which really sucks because Kareem Hunt's an absolute beast.
Yeah, and once again, will continue to be misused by Andy Reid.
Yep. All right. So again, Breida, I think, is obviously a play here. His ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Any of the wide receivers, Garcon, Goodwin may actually be healthy. I saw that he was practicing. We didn't cover that in the notes. I think it said that he was practicing this week. He's an option, flex option. Garcon, I think, is a flex option. All of them have upside because they're going to have to pass the ball. Pettis is a deep league flex option just because we don't know what's going to happen there. And I was big on George Kittle this last week, and that proved to be an absolute, nothing. So I'm hesitant on him. He is a streaming option, but if you could probably find options that have been more used so far on the season.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Travis Kelce. Of the starters between Mahomes, Hunt, and Hill and Kelce, I'm probably most quote-unquote nervous about Kelce because the 49ers in the first 2 games have only given up 5 catches, 50-plus yards, and 2 touchdowns. So most of the production coming from the tight ends against 49ers is a touchdown. Bodes well for Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
But Minnesota and Kyle Rudolph, solid tight end. Detroit, So I wouldn't put too much stock in it, but Travis Kelce owners, I don't think you're going to see a 2-touchdown game in this one like you did last week. But certainly yardage, touchdown is likely in a high-scoring game. So obviously you start your Kansas City starters right now.
All righty. That's all we got for tonight. Anything else from you, Justin?
No, that's it for me. Other than stay tuned for tomorrow's episode.
All right. So, again, one more time, Justin will be doing a solo episode tomorrow. He'll be covering the rest of the games for the weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast tonight. Hope you'll enjoy tomorrow night's podcast as well. Thank you again for listening to the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan. With me tonight was my brother. Hope you guys have a nice night. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Skull King Nation. Thank you for listening to the Skull King Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.